A country occupying the western third of a single Caribbean island has produced one of the most statistically anomalous genomes in the Western Hemisphere. 3 numbers sitting simultaneously in the same population do not fit the standard demographic model that applies to every neighboring island in the same sea. 98.2%. That is Haiti's African maternal ancestry, the highest maternal African signal of any population in the Western Hemisphere, higher than any country in Africa's national averages. 0% of those maternal lineages maps to Native American haplogroups. In Puerto Rico, 61% of maternal lineages trace to indigenous ancestry. In the Dominican Republic, 22%. In Haiti, 0. 99%. That is the frequency of a single genetic mutation in the Haitian genome that makes the person carrying it near absolutely immune to one specific form of malaria. In a country where malaria is a documented public health emergency, researchers tested 136 confirmed malaria patients and found 0 cases of Plasmodium vivax. Not rare, not low, 0, 6.1%. That is how often modern Haiti's population carries the dominant strain of hepatitis B circulating across West Africa today, the same region where Haiti's ancestors originated, where that strain accounts for up to 95% of infections. None of these numbers fit. Each one is the record of a specific historical force that sealed, protected, or preserved something that every other Caribbean population lost or diluted. Understanding all 3 requires starting in 1791. Before the 3 numbers make sense, you need to understand what Saint-Domingue actually was. While every other French colony in the Caribbean operated as a plantation economy, Saint-Domingue operated as the most productive plantation economy in Atlantic history. Approximately 40% of Europe's sugar and 50% of its coffee came from an island smaller than Portugal. By 1789, Saint-Domingue held 500,000 enslaved Africans against 30,000 French colonizers. That ratio existed nowhere else in the Caribbean at that intensity. The French slave trade operating in the Caribbean drew predominantly from the Bight of Benin, the coastal region of what is now Benin, Togo, and western Nigeria. The ethnic groups arriving in the largest numbers were Fon, Yue, and Mina, Dahomean populations from the same cultural tradition that produced the Vodou religious system. The DNA and the religion were arriving on the same ships from the same ports. The French colonial population was expelled. 30 to 40,000 colonizers left within a decade of the revolutionary victory. The Haitian Constitution of 1805 formalized what the revolution had started. Article 14 declared that all Haitian citizens, regardless of phenotype, would henceforth be known only as noir, black. Constitutional bans on foreign white land ownership sealed the demographic isolation. The multigenerational admixture that had been continuous in every other Caribbean island was severed in Haiti inside a single decade and never resumed. What strikes me most about this second number isn't how complex the science is, but how beautifully it illustrates the sheer scale of African survival in the New World. Malaria needs a door to get into your blood. The specific parasite responsible for one major form of the disease, Plasmodium vivax, can only infect a red blood cell by latching onto a particular protein sitting on the cell's surface. If that protein isn't there, the parasite has nothing to grab onto. It simply cannot get in. Some people are born without that protein. A tiny change in a single gene, passed down from parent to child, switches it off entirely on red blood cells. People who inherit this change from both parents are effectively locked out of this strain of malaria for life. This protection didn't appear in Haiti. It appeared in West and Central Africa over centuries as malaria killed off the people who didn't have it and left behind the people who did. By the time the slave trade reached its peak, huge numbers of the West and Central Africans being forced onto ships already carried this protection in their blood. In a clinical study of Haitian malaria patients, researchers checked 164 people for this protective change. 99.4% had it. Of those tested in full detail, 99% had inherited it from both parents, the strongest possible version of the protection. Then the researchers tested 136 confirmed malaria cases specifically for that one strain, Plasmodium vivax. The result was 0, not one case, in a country that reports tens of thousands of malaria infections every year. Haiti does still have malaria. All of it is a different strain, one that doesn't need that particular protein to get in and slips past the protection entirely. But the strain that does need it has effectively been shut out of the Haitian population, not through medicine or public health policy, but through a defense that West and Central African ancestors built up over generations and that the slave trade carried to the island at massive scale. The Dominican Republic, with more European and Taino ancestry mixed in, carries far less of this protection, which means two nations sharing one island respond completely differently to the same parasite, because their colonial histories sent different ancestors their way. The hepatitis chapter required a different kind of reading from anything else in this research. Hepatitis B is a virus, and like most viruses, it has evolved into different strains over time, each one tied loosely to a different part of the world. In modern West Africa, one specific strain is now dominant, found in up to 95% of infections in countries like Nigeria, Benin, and Ghana, because Haiti's population traces its ancestry predominantly to West and West Central Africa. The expectation was that Haiti would show that same dominant strain today. What a comprehensive study of hepatitis B among pregnant women in Haiti found was the opposite. That modern West African strain showed up in only 6.1% of Haitian cases. And even those rare cases looked like they'd arrived recently, not like they'd been in the population for generations. Instead, the strains that actually dominate in Haiti are ones that are now rare in West Africa, including one researcher specifically traced back to the old slave trading region known as the Bight of Benin, a strain that has almost disappeared from West Africa today. The explanation the research team reached is the one that reframes what Haiti is. The modern dominant West African strain didn't exist in West Africa during the transatlantic slave trade. It spread through West African populations afterward, within the last 200 years, carried by modern travel and changing conditions that didn't exist when the slave ships were sailing. Haiti's viral landscape was frozen at the point before that spread happened. Because Haiti has had so little new population mixing since the revolution sealed the island off, the older strains that arrived with enslaved Africans in the 17th and 18th centuries simply never got replaced. Haiti isn't just preserving the DNA of its founding population, it's preserving the diseases those people were carrying when they arrived. A living snapshot of 18th century West Africa that West Africa itself has since moved past. While most of the genetic anomalies I uncovered are invisible to the naked eye, there was one chapter in this research I couldn't stop thinking about, because its legacy can still be seen in the mountains of Haiti today. In 1802, Napoleon dispatched approximately 5,200 Polish legionnaires to Saint-Domingue to suppress the revolution. The Polish soldiers had joined Napoleon's army, hoping he would support the liberation of their own partitioned homeland. What they found instead was French officers treating enslaved Haitians with extreme brutality, while the Haitian insurgents fought for the same self-determination the Poles had been seeking for their own nation. Hundreds of Polish soldiers defected. Following the Haitian victory, Jean-Jacques ordered the execution of the remaining white French population and spared the Polish and German defectors. The 1805 Constitution formalized their status. Article 13 explicitly naturalized individuals of Polish and German birth, permitting them to own agricultural land in direct defiance of the general ban on white property ownership. Article 14 declared them legally black. Approximately 400 to 500 Polish survivors settled in mountain communities, Cazale, Fond des Blancs, Jacmel, over 9 generations and more than 2 centuries of intermarriage with the dominant Afro-Haitian population. This founding group was genetically diluted into the broader Haitian genome. Modern descendants in Cazale are phenotypically consistent with the broader Afro-Caribbean population. Commercial DNA tests return dominant sub-Saharan African markers. But when modern descendants of these specific Cazale families spit into commercial DNA test tubes, the results reveal a stunning survival story. Autosomal signatures showing Eastern European and Russian markers as high as 24%. The genetic echo of an unexpected military alliance preserved across 9 generations. Lighter hair and eye colors appear at above average frequencies in these specific mountain villages, driven by recessive alleles introduced by those 400 Polish men 2 centuries ago. And the Black Madonna of Częstochowa, Poland's most sacred Catholic icon, has been integrated into the local Vodou pantheon in Cazale. The genetic legacy and the cultural legacy of a Napoleonic defection are both still present simultaneously in a Haitian mountain village. There's a fascinating assumption I often see when looking at trace Native American ancestry in Haitian genomes, and it requires a major historical correction. Commercial and academic DNA databases occasionally detect tiny Native American autosomal signatures in modern Haitians, usually ranging from 0.1 to 1%. The immediate assumption is that this is purely Taino residue from the pre-contact population of Hispaniola. And while subtle Caribbean indigenous markers do exist, the data reveals a much more complex continent-spanning story. A significant part of this trace signal likely traveled from a completely unexpected location, the banks of the Mississippi River. In November 1729, the Natchez Nation, a powerful mound-building culture along the lower Mississippi, launched a massive revolt against French Louisiana colonists. The French retaliated brutally. In January 1731, French forces captured hundreds of Natchez people. To permanently break their resistance, the French shipped nearly 400 Natchez captives directly to Saint-Domingue, selling them into plantation slavery. Because the Natchez captives were primarily women and children, they were absorbed into maternal lines of the enslaved population. Modern Haitians who carry trace Native American autosomal markers show genetic affinities to North American or Mesoamerican reference panels, not to the Caribbean Taino sets that appear in Puerto Rican and Dominican profiles. The indigenous DNA in Haiti is not from the island. It arrived from Mississippi in 1731 on a French colonial slave ship. Haiti's genome is not uniform across the island. A genetic gradient runs north to south. Northern Haiti shows African paternal lineages concentrated heavily toward the Congo Kingdom and West Central African populations. Southern Haiti preserves a legacy of higher historical admixture, reflecting the concentration of mixed-race landowners and maroon communities along the southern peninsula. This geographic gradient is mirrored in the spiritual world. In the north, Vodou ceremonies are deeply influenced by the Congo-derived Lemba rites. In the south, the ritual landscape expands into the fiery, revolutionary energy of the Petuo rites, itself heavily shaped by Congo cosmology, contrasting with the ancient Dahomean Fawn and Yu lineages of the Rada pantheon. The ceremonial geography and the haplogroup geography map onto the same north-south gradient, both recording where people came from and how much they mixed with populations from other origins. 3 numbers. The same genome, 98.2% maternal African ancestry, locked in by a revolution that removed the only demographic force that would have diluted it. 99% carrying the inherited malaria protection, passed down at near total saturation because a West and Central African defense arrived at population scale through the slave trade, and was preserved in a sealed-off population, 6.1% carrying the dominant modern West African hepatitis strain, because Haiti's viral landscape is still holding on to the disease patterns of the 18th century that West Africa itself has since left behind. None of this was preserved deliberately. The colonial system that produced Haiti was not built for genetic preservation, it was built for extraction. The genome preserved itself through revolution, through constitutional isolation, through the inherited biological armor of the populations that were brought there, and through the specific accidents of which people arrived on which ships in which years. A Napoleonic military defection left Eastern European DNA in a Haitian mountain village where the Black Madonna of Chenstocoa now sits in a Vodou altar. A French colonial slave ship leaving Louisiana in 1731 deposited North American Mississippian indigenous DNA into Haitian genomes that analysts have been misreading as Taino for years. The north of the island carries Congo, the south carries Fawn and Yui, and one of the deadliest strains of malaria on Earth simply cannot get a foothold in the people who live there. 5 different forces built this genome, and not one of them was trying to. So the next time someone calls a DNA test result just numbers, ask them which revolution, which virus, or which war they think wrote those numbers in the first place. Thanks for watching.